Hey kids, welcome back to another segment of teaching about God's Word and learning about Jesus and the Bible. Today we're going to continue our story of learning about Joseph, the guy who had the coat of many colors, whose brothers threw him into a pit and then sold him into slavery, and who then went to jail because he was falsely accused of doing something wrong. But today we're going to learn how God used a bad dream to bring about something great for the whole world.
Matthew 5:16. Don't hide your light, let it shine for all. Let your good deeds glow for all to see, so that they will praise your heavenly Father.
That means when we love God, He shines out of us like a bright light. Then everyone around us can see His light and say, "Wow, God is amazing!"
Have you ever had a bad dream? One where you were sleeping and everything was so nice and quiet, and all of a sudden you just had this dream where you were falling and it felt like the sky and the ground were just falling away from you and had fallen out from underneath you. Or maybe you had one where all your teeth fell out and your mouth felt so in pain. Or sometimes people have bad dreams about being late or unprepared or forgetting something. Or maybe you had one where someone that you cared about was getting hurt, or you tripped and fell and hurt yourself. Or maybe you had one where something scary was chasing you like a dinosaur. Did you know that all of us have bad dreams? I used to have bad dreams a lot when I was a kid. You're not alone. Maybe you have dreams like that. If you do, it's a really good idea to talk to somebody about them, because one way that God comforts us is by giving us people to listen to us talk about things that scare us. We can always talk to our parents, we can talk to our teachers, we can talk to our Sunday school leaders to remind us that God is caring and that He cares for us even when we have bad dreams. In fact, God gives us a story about a bad dream. In the Old Testament, He tells us a story that we're going to learn about today, about a king who had a bad dream and what happened in spite of it. So before we tell the story, though, we're going to sing a couple songs and worship Jesus, and then I'll tell the story about the king with the bad dream.
This the light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This the light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This the light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
joy, joy down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart. I've got the joy, 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 joy down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart to stay. And I'm so happy, so very happy. I've got the love of Jesus in my heart, down in my heart. And I'm so happy, so very happy. I've got the love of Jesus in my heart.
What else you got?
I've got the peace that passes understanding down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart. I've got the peace that passes understanding down in my heart. Where? Down in my heart to stay. And I'm so happy, so very happy. I've got the love of Jesus in my heart, down in my heart. And I'm so happy, so very happy. I've got the love of Jesus in my heart. I've got the wonderful love of my blessed Redeemer way down in the depths of my heart. Where? Down in the depths of my heart. Where? Down in the depths of my heart. I've got the wonderful love of my blessed Redeemer way down in the depths of my heart. Where? Down in the depths of my heart to stay. And I'm so happy, so very happy. I've got the love of Jesus in my heart, down in my heart. And I'm so happy, so very happy. I've got the love of Jesus in my heart. I've got the love of Jesus in my heart. I've got the love of Jesus in my heart.
Well, now it's time to tell the story of the king who had the bad dream. A long time ago, the king of Egypt had a bad dream. He dreamed about 7 cows who were all standing down by the water of a river, a very big river in Egypt called the Nile. And the 7 cows, they were really well fed, plump and juicy. They would have made great steak dinners. But right after he saw them eating and chewing their cud and looking very happy, 7 more cows suddenly appeared coming out of the river. And these cows were thin and frail, and they looked very sick and diseased. But what surprised him even more was the sick cows suddenly decided they were to eat the big fat cows. And that's what happened. The thin cows ate the fat cows. And it was very strange. In fact, so strange that Pharaoh woke up and he was very worried. He didn't know what the dream meant. Before he could think about what it was, he fell back again into a deep sleep. And another dream started. Another scary dream. Have you ever had 2 scary dreams in one night? I can't imagine. Well, this scary dream was very similar to the first one. And in this dream, there was 7 plump heads of grain growing from a single stalk. Kind of like when you have a corn on the cob and you know, where you chew it. It was like that on a stalk, where 7 of those corns on the cob were all on one stalk. And those 7 corn on the cob, they looked plump and juicy to the king. They looked really tasty and fresh. But then suddenly another stalk grew up with 7 more heads of grain. But these heads of grain were looking sick and wilted, like the sun had beaten down on them and they hadn't been drinking any water. And these 7 grains, they made the other healthy grain go away. And so the fat and tasty grain was gone, and all that was left was the wilty kind. Well, then the dream ended, and the king woke up again. And just like the first time, he was very scared, and he didn't know what the dream meant. And since he didn't know, he thought, well, the best thing I could do is maybe ask some of my friends, my advisors, my magicians, my wise men. So he called his wise men to come to him, and he said, tell me what this dream means, because I do not know. And he went through each of his advisors one by one, and none of them could tell him what the dream meant. But then his cupbearer, the one who tasted all his drinks to make sure he never got sick, said, actually, I think I know a guy. When I was in prison, there was this guy named Joseph, and I had a bad dream, and I told it to Joseph, and Joseph knew the answer. He knew what the dream meant. Why don't I go get him to talk to us, and maybe he could tell you what your dream meant. So that's what Pharaoh did. He sent the cupbearer to go get Joseph to figure out what his dream meant. So Joseph came, and he put on his best clothes, and he came before the king. And the king said, And I've had these dreams and no one seems to understand what they mean, but they tell me that you could tell me what they mean. So could you tell me? And Joseph said, I can't tell you by myself, but I serve a God who can tell you. Tell me your dream, O king, and I will ask God to tell me what it means. So the king, he told him the dreams. He told him about the 7 cows who had eaten the other 7 cows, and the 7 heads of grain that had eaten the other 7 heads of grain. And then Joseph said, the dreams, they are one dream. Even though they seemed like 2, they have one meaning, repeated 2 different ways. And this is what Joseph said the dreams meant. He said the 7 cows and the 7 heads of grain stand for 7 years. The dream means, O king, that that Egypt will have 7 years of plenty. 7 years where God is going to give you lots of extra food, and all of the crops will grow big and strong, and the cows will grow fat and sassy and rich and plump, and everything will taste great. But then after those 7 years, 7 more years will come where there will be famine in the land. Things will die off. Cattle will get thin and sick. People will feel hungry. And so what I suggest you do, O king, is I think you should appoint someone to make sure that we harvest a lot of the grain in the 7 good years and we put it into storage so that we can have it for the 7 bad years. Well, the Pharaoh, he liked this idea a lot, and so he actually decided to put Joseph in charge of making sure that during the 7 years, all of the extra food was put into storage so that they could have it for the 7 bad years. Well, Joseph did that. He did it to the best of his ability. And God decided to use that to save thousands and thousands of people all over the world when the 7 bad years came. And that is exactly what happened. When the 7 bad years came, people from all over the world came to Egypt because that was the only place that had food that still was in the storage. And Joseph was wise and smart. And because God helped him and gave him wisdom, he was able to give food to people from all over the world, saving untold numbers of lives. See, in God's plan, even though Pharaoh had a bad dream, God used his bad dream to save millions or at least thousands of people all over the world. So that makes us wonder, what could God do with our dreams? When we are scared and worried and fearful about the things that we dreamed about, we can trust that God could still use even things like that to help other people and to save the world. We know that because God actually did that. Joseph is kind of like Jesus, don't you think? Just like Jesus, Joseph had some really bad times. He was in prison. He was a slave. He was not having a good time. But God brought him out of his slavery, brought him out of being in prison, all because of the king's bad dream. And he used that bad dream to make Joseph in charge of all of Egypt and to save so many people. Jesus kind of did the same thing. He was brought to earth and he was born in really poor circumstances. And even though he was poor, God used him to save everyone in the entire world. So when we put our trust, when we believe in God, and we can trust him that he will make even our bad dreams turn out into things that save other people.
I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got love like an ocean, I've got love like an ocean, I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean, I've got love like an ocean, I've got
our story today. We learned that God makes all the bad things turn into good things. We also learned that God knows what's going to happen before, during, and after it happens. That He predicted the future through those dreams, so that He knows what's going to happen to you your whole life. That's why we can trust Him, and that's why He is trustworthy. When we place our trust in Him, He is the best place to do that because He knows the future, the past, and the present. And He knows what's going to happen in any situation. So I hope that you've learned a lot today. I thought it was so encouraging to learn that even bad dreams can turn into good things if we trust in God. And I hope that you're encouraged that God controls everything, even our dreams.